Hello my lovely friends and welcome back to my channel. My name is Artie. For those of you who are new here and don't know, Leela is just my brand name. Oh, you must have heard that meow. If you didn't, wait until I tell you what my inspiration for this month's Plan With Me video is. It is from our new kitten. Her name is Boba and she is right here. I don't know if you could see her. Come here, Boba. Oh my goodness. Look at her! She's the most adorable thing in the world! Mwah. Okay, she doesn't like being held very much sometimes. Sometimes she loves it, but sometimes she doesn't. But she is the most cutest thing in the world. I am so happy. She is teaching me so many things, and we are going to go into that a little bit more in the video. So that, I think, is going to be my introduction for this video. So let's get into it. Okay, let's get started on the cover page. I penciled everything out and kind of already planned out a lot of the collage elements as well, just because I didn't want this video to be like super long. For the header, I went with a more bubbly style of font because I wanted it to be a little bit more whimsical. And for all of the outlining for this theme, I'm going to be using the Sakura Pigma microns, and all of them are going to be in sepia tone. None of it is going to be in black. I used a sepia tone because yes, this theme is whimsical, but I did want a vintage element in there, and sepia tones, brown tones really reflect that vintage aesthetic in my opinion. So I wanted this cover page to be pretty minimal, but I also wanted it to be whimsical and vintage inspired, as I have probably mentioned by 50 times by now. So I added in all the whimsical elements like the moon, stars, planets, and the clouds, and the little kitty of course. And then for the vintage elements here, I'm going to be using a lot of different scraps of papers. A lot of them are vintage patterned and some of them are from book pages, and I'm also going to be adding some grid washies and floral patterned washies in here. And the whole vibe for what I'm going here is kind of like that junk journal collage type of vibe, something very similar to my last month's theme. I guess you can kind of see this theme that I'm doing this month as a collaboration from all the themes that I've done so far in 2021. I actually think the most authentic way to create something that is unique and personal to you and something that is different is to be taking inspiration from your previous works of art that you've done in the past instead of taking inspiration from other people. There's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from other people. In fact, I do it all the time. I did it for these kitties because I have never really drawn kitties before. So you have to have a certain starting point, and that is when other artists become very helpful to your evolution as a creator. And then you grow and grow as an artist, and you become more comfortable with your technical skills, you become more confident in the style that you want to create in, and all of a sudden you have this entire vault that you can draw inspiration from at any point. And as someone who has been bullet journaling for the last 2 years, that is kind of how I've been creating my themes every single month. And let me just tell you, I love fat animals. I love them so much, so I wanted my doodles of these kittens to be as fat and thick as possible, so I made their booties really big. I also really like fluffy tails on animals, and so I try to incorporate the things I love in real life, and I incorporate them into my doodles to make them unique and different from the other artists and the photos that I am inspiring from. So as you can see, we have moved on from the cover page and we are on the quote page now, so I'd like to read the quote out to you. And it goes like this: "Every girl must decide whether to be true to herself or true to the world. Every girl must decide whether to settle for adoration or fight for love." This quote is from a book called Love Warrior by Glennon Doyle. We are going to be reading this book for our Patreon book club in May. I loved this particular passage in the book because it talks about how our society cages women and girls, and how our beauty is for other people's consumption and for their pleasure instead of for ourselves. And I found that to be so relatable to me in my life because growing up as a little girl in America, I got a lot of my physical validation and internal validation from men and social media. I've caught myself plenty of times photoshopping my face and my body to make it represent the ideal beauty standards that society places on women. In fact, I've overexposed my videos on YouTube and Instagram so my hands look lighter than they actually are because the darkness of my skin has been a huge insecurity of mine. And at a certain point, I realized, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I looking for other people's adoration instead of my own? Because now now reacting to these insecurities not only gives my insecurities more power, so I end up feeling a lot more insecure about it, but it also validates our capitalistic society to keep doing what they're doing, which eventually then keeps hurting the younger generation of women when actually we're supposed to be the example to them. So now I try to really embrace my features that are different from what society tells me I need to be. Because if we think about it, all of our insecurities are basically manifesting from these large corporations that were built by men so that men can stay in power and keep their profits. And I just want to say it's not enough to just tolerate these features, right? We don't want to tolerate them. We actually want to find the beauty in our features exactly as they are. I still catch myself being insecure about a lot of these things, and it's painful sometimes, but I am more self-aware, and because I'm self-aware of these issues, I am able to heal them. Okay, so now let's move on to the monthly calendar page. And so I wanted my monthly calendar to look like a window. And I got this inspiration from our new little kitten. Her name is Boba. She loves to sit by the window and just look outside and look at all the leaves and the trees in the wind. And all I see is her silhouette, and I see her fur, and I just see her moving her head from the left and to the right and then looking right back at me. And it is literally the most majestic vision I have ever laid my eyes on. And because it was just so beautiful, I just had to incorporate it into my bullet journal, and that is how this monthly calendar page came to be. So I wanted the calendar to be able to fit on one page, so I made the dimensions of each square 3 by 3. And on the windowsill itself, I added 3 different types of plants. One is an ivy, one is a fern, and the other is a philodendron. And I drew out the kitten doodle to make it look as if she is facing towards the window, but then looking right back at me. I know it doesn't really look like it, but that is what I intended for it to be. It's not perfect, but whatever. And Boba loves to play with little pieces of string. I swear, we bought her the fanciest scratching treehouse post. We literally bought her all the toys she can play with, but the one thing that she is obsessed with is a little piece of twine. I swear to you, it is like, why did we even get her all this stuff? I swear, she is just like a minimalist at heart. She was born to be a minimalist. So the color palette of this bullet journal theme, if you couldn't already tell, is pretty neutral. I am using greens and I am using browns, and I am also using a little bit of pink because, I don't know, kittens kind of remind me of the color pink. Her mouth is so incredibly pink. My dog's mouth isn't pink, but her mouth is so pink. And so I thought, you know, the color pink seemed pretty appropriate. I don't usually use a lot of pink in a lot of my bullet journal pages because I like that neutral color palette more, but it is a whimsical color, so I will occasionally use it. I actually kind of regret filling in this moon with this pink Crayola super tip. I just think this color stands out way too much in contrast with the other colors in this bullet journal spread, so I did at one point go over it a little bit with a white Posca pen just to kind of neutralize the color a bit and desaturate it. I'm still not completely happy with it, but you know what? Sometimes we make mistakes and we just kind of have to go with the flow and accept what our art looks like, because I definitely did not want to redo this whole thing, so whatever, again. So over here on the right page, I am drawing in my task list and my intentions list. If you're new here, I'll quickly explain. I keep these separate because I want to keep my work life separate from my spiritual and personal development life. Although often both of these areas of our life often intertwine, I have realized keeping the list separate has helped me stay a bit more organized. So really quickly, I used a gray Staedtler fine liner to create the grid pattern in the task list and intentions list box. I also changed the lettering for the May header from that bubbly style that we did on the cover to this more calligraphy style, and I made it whimsical by adding a little bit more of a flair and a bounce to it. I also added paper ephemera under the task list and the intentions list. It kind of looks like washi to me, but it actually is just paper. Because I did a very similar theme for April, the whole vintage inspired look, I actually went in a lot more detail on where I get my paper and my memo pads and all of my washi tapes and stuff. So if you want to go ahead and check that out, I will post a little card thing on the top right hand corner. But you don't have to leave before you you finish watching this video, because I'm gonna also link everything down in the description box. Thank you! So I'm just gonna add a little bit of last minute washi touches here, and then we are going to move on to the May habit and mood trackers. I switched back to the bubbly style of header here. I actually tried a bunch of different styles here, and this is the one that I ended up with. And for the format of my habit and mood tracker spread, I went with something very similar to the last 2 months actually, where I am putting my habits up on top here. I have 8 habits that I'm going to be tracking, and then all of my mood trackers are going to be on the bottom. Everything I am tracking here is pretty consistent with last month. For example, I am tracking my mood, focus, anxiety, irritability, and the hours of sleep that I am getting. And then on the top, the habits that I am going to be tracking are if I posted on Instagram, did I journal, did I pray, did I read, go to a meeting, talk to my sponsor, did I apply my makeup that day. And then the one thing that I did switch out was last month I put in if I was getting headaches or not, and I actually switched that to me time because my headaches kind of stopped happening ever since I got my desk, and I kind of explained that in my desk setup video, so you can go ahead and watch that. I will tag that up here as well. And I specifically added me time in my habit tracker because I noticed for the last 6 months I have been overworking myself to the point of exhaustion, to the point where I am literally getting sick like once a month. I think deep inside I knew that I was working very alcoholically, but I was in denial about the whole thing because I was like acting off of my fear. I was like telling myself like I need to get this off the ground as fast as possible, because if I don't, I won't move out of my parents' house, I won't be independent, I won't be self-supporting, and these are all big fears of mine. But just because I have these fears doesn't mean I'm going to react off of them and work off of them, because that is just going to affect my sanity in a very unhealthy way, and it's going to affect my creativity, it's going to affect my motivation, my drive, and it's going to constantly make me feel like I want to give up. The blessing in my life that came that helped me realize what I was doing was actually getting our kitten, Boba, because all of a sudden, you know, I want to play with her, I want to spend time with her, and I was taking breaks more often to be with her, and I realized just how much happier I was, just how much more I was getting done in my day because I was taking those breaks. And so before, you know, I start talking about my weekly here, I just want to say that I did add a quote on my habit and mood tracker page, and the quote says, "Rest is a requirement for the creative process." And I added that in there as a reminder for me to recognize that I need to take time for myself. Okay, so now let's move on to the weekly, and I am going to say this right now, but this is my favorite spread of this whole entire setup so far. If you follow me on Instagram, you would know that last month I became heavily obsessed with Dutch door page spreads, and so I am bringing that obsession into my May Plan With Me bullet journal pages. I added a small little vintage collage on the top left-hand corner of this page, and I am just in love with it because, I don't know, I feel like the composition and the layering are just... I just like the way they look, and I just had a lot of fun creating them. And then I added a little calendar and a gratitude section and a notes section. And then for the borders of my daily, weekly page things, I never know what to call these things, but this thing that's in the center of my page, I wanted it to kind of look like they are windows from a computer. I don't know if they look like that, but to me they kind of look like that because I added that little heart icon next to each of the days of the week. And then this little kitten doodle, oh my god, I'm just so in love with her. She is an all-white kitten. I didn't add any patterns inside of her. I actually realized later I do like the all-white kitten look, and I kind of regret filling in the other kittens on my other pages, but whatever, it's fine. And then I really love the floral elements that I'm adding in behind her. I just think it looks so elegant and sophisticated, and it just kind of fits well with the whole composition of the page. And then to continue with the whimsical aesthetic, I added the clouds and the moon on the left side, and underneath it, I wrote, "All feelings are for feeling, especially the painful ones." I kind of just added that as a reminder for myself because I think especially during the pandemic, I got into this very unhealthy habit of escaping instead of feeling my actual feelings and actually sitting with the uncomfort. Like, yes, I stopped using drugs and alcohol and I'm not in a relationship, but I found myself drowning myself out with like TV shows and Netflix and podcasts and like all this background noise. And even like social media, right? We're constantly just scrolling and scrolling. The first thing we do when we wake up is just pick up our phone, and it's really just so we don't have to feel the restlessness that is going on inside of our bodies. So I've been really trying to practice like sitting with my feelings and just being present with what I'm doing and not watching TV before bed and kind of only restricting it to maybe Friday nights with my siblings and kind of making it a family bonding time. And you know, I'm not perfect at this at all. I keep falling back into my old patterns like all the time, especially because we are just at home and it's the pandemic. It's just so easy to go back into like escaping. But you know, 3 years ago, I made a commitment to myself that I'm going to love myself and I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to try and live this healthier lifestyle. And so it's not going to be this perfect thing, but as long as I don't give up and I keep trying, one day it's going to stick. And I know that because other healthy habits have stuck. Like every single day I make my bed without even thinking about it now. So anyways, now that I'm done with my tangent about feelings, I am going to talk a little bit about the different ways to letter the word may. I actually just added this list on the other side of the Dutch door because I didn't know what to put on the other side of it, and I didn't want to create my weekly yet because, hey, we're not there yet, so we're trying to live in the present here. So these are just 8 different minimal styles to letter the word may. You can pause the video if you want to use any of them, and then on the bottom left-hand corner, I added another doodle of a kitten that fit kind of in the space where I cut out the kitten from the weekly page. I just made her posture a little bit different than the other one. In this one, she is facing the front, and in the other one, she was facing the right. And then for my self-care for the month of May, as many of you know, I do a self-care page every single month. For this month, I decided to do a list of fears because, hey, I have been in a lot of fears and I want to take a look at what those fears are. This page is heavily collaged up because I just wanted to make it like that, I guess. I was also just trying to have kind of fun with it because it is a heavy topic, and why don't we mix in a little bit of joy with it? Why not? So I'm going to be creating a little envelope here using my We Are Memory Keepers mini envelope maker, and inside of the envelope I'm going to write a little note to myself that basically is telling me that I am so incredibly loved and that there's nothing to be afraid of because wherever I am right now is exactly where I'm supposed to be, and that I'm a fighter and that I'm incredibly resilient. And then for the header of this page, I'm going to be creating it on this post-it that I have already stuck to this page. It's kind of like a vintage post-it, and I drew an image of a cat and some whimsical doodles there as well. And inside of that post-it, I also wrote a couple words that say, "Be brave, my love," because to conquer your fears, you need to be brave. And then on the right-hand side, I wrote, "Because how can we grow if we don't first acknowledge and accept that we are afraid?" Because I honestly don't even think we can be brave and actually overcome our fears if we're not even aware of them in the first place. Sometimes we just react off of our fear, not knowing that we are acting off of fear. So if we start to acknowledge them and write them down on paper, then we can see it showing up in our life and we can become aware of it and try to, do the thing that's the opposite of it, which will then be an action of love instead of fear. So I'm going to list off some of my fears here, and maybe some of you can relate. So I'm terrified of being an adult and living life alone. I'm afraid of taxes because who isn't? I'm so scared of taking care of myself and getting sick because, hey, I would love to be an adult and also be a child at the same time because I love getting taken care of. I'm also afraid of success because I'm afraid of the responsibilities that come with success. I'm afraid of not having enough. I'm afraid of trying and failing and gaining things only to lose them again. I'm afraid of rejection and getting left behind and not having a community or having judgments that are coming from my community. And in a way, I'm also afraid of being happy, because being happy sometimes could mean that I am all of a sudden unrelatable to people. I actually think the last one is the most unhealthy of them all, because to think that, you will not be relatable to other people when you're happy is kind of a cop-out in a way. It's like I'm being a victim to my problems and keeping myself small for the fear of not having a community, when in fact that community just might not be right for me, especially if they don't relate to me just because I'm happy now. I also think this fear just comes from the idea of like how people celebrate the tragic artist, which is like, no, I don't want to do that. My art can come from joy. It doesn't have to come from pain. And even if it does come from pain, my pain doesn't have to be something I worship. And by worship, I mean by adding an extra layer of unnecessary pain on top of the normal pain that we feel as humans. And here is the final flip through of my May Plan With Me bullet journal pages. I'm going to be honest here and say that I do feel like I went a little bit over the top with a lot of the collages and didn't make them as minimal as I'd like for them to be. But I had fun with it and I really love them, especially my weekly page and my fears page. And this was just a learning experience for me. I think next month I'm going to go a little bit extra heavy on the minimal side of it, because the whole point of making minimal page spreads for me was self-care. It was taking care of myself through less planning but more creating. And in a way I was creating more with all the time I was spending with the layering and the compositions and whatnot. And because the whole layering collages type of thing was so new to me and I got so excited, I do go over the top when I get really excited about things. I'm excited to go explore a little bit further and bring those same concepts into more of a minimal look. But I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I won't go minimal. We're not there yet. And once again, we have made it to the end of the video. I love you if you're still here. And I love you if you're not still here, but you're not here to hear that I love you, so sucks for those people. Ignore the slight judgment in that tone, by the way. I am not judgmental, I promise. Moving on from my judgmental tone conversation here, I really hope you guys learned something new or at least got some inspiration for your bullet journals. If you're new here and you didn't know, I do have a Patreon. We read one book a month over there, and we also have other fun things like stickers, art prints, and just happy mail stuff. And sorry, my little kitty. She is distracting me because she is right here. So, damn, what was I gonna say? Oh, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I just wanted to put that out there if you were interested in something like that. If not, don't even worry about it. Your support means so much to me regardless of all of that. I hope you guys have a beautiful day today or night, wherever you guys might be. And if no one told you they loved you today, I love you so very much. We'll be looking for a little bit of a change tomorrow, and of course the possibilities of she hurt me. Up on the radar. However, the satellite photo was pretty interesting for the western half of the U.S. Rain showers and thunder showers along that frontal system, then that wide band of fairly heavy snows. Now, what will happen each time